We'll now move on to Brussels. Globalists under siege by thousands of farmers and their supporters, right in the heart of Brussels at the EU itself. Here's a video. This is Brussels. I don't know what the fire is. I'm guessing that's just like a oil drum fire outside or a campfire or something. But it looks quite bad. It's quite major. It's not just a campfire. So yeah, this is what's happening there. Just outside the EU capital. Oh, it is a tie. They talked about that, didn't they? Yeah, we have an article on this. We'll go into that in a second. Should the farmers go see Klaus Schwab at his house to discuss their situation? Asks Jim Ferguson UK. Let me just go and put this up. Do not cry in chat. But I would like to know the answer to that question as well from Jim Ferguson. I wonder, should they? Interesting. But yeah, spirit of Brexit. It's a similar spirit for sure. Fire looks traditionally European. Freedom Truckers has evolved into Freedom Train. There's the Freedom Truckers thing has gone international by this time. Perhaps the leader of the World Economic Forum can explain why he thinks the farmers are to blame for the climate scam, says Jim Ferguson. We actually had something on the climate today. It's quite interesting. I may go into it a bit if we have time later today. I'm sure they would be interested in discussing this. Join us, and they say Freedom Train International. So I'm not sure what train, I guess, means like a convoy, like a train of vehicles. It doesn't have to be a literal train. But yeah, good for these guys. Now, there's more on this story from Zero Hedge. Rubber bullets and water cannons were deployed against hundreds of European farmers protesting outside the EU Parliament building in Brussels on Thursday. The farmers threw eggs, set off fireworks, and started fires in the building while demanding that European leaders stop punishing them with more taxes and rising costs imposed to finance a so-called green agenda. Now, as I have a story on this, quite a good story I wanted to cover. It's quite dry, but it's good, which is about climate change, about how, I'll summarize it quickly for you, chat, but it is worth a read because there's more to it than this, about how a lot of the, like, first level, like, basic, immediate level data gathering for the climate change narrative is just horrendously flawed. That if you look at, so the way this happens is that the temperature sensors, which are placed all around the globe, 96% of them, according to the guys that did this research, 96% of them are in locations which are unusually hot. Now, if it was like 20%, I would say, okay, that's bad, but it's not really going to change the story hugely, you know, a little bit. So it's not going to change whether it is or isn't happening. But 96%, it would be a problem at like 60 of like, well, okay, maybe it's bullshit then. But at 96%, that method is guaranteed to be wrong. No matter how much you adjust it, no matter how much work you do to try to like account for that, it's guaranteed to be wrong. Almost certainly. And that was the research, that's what the research found as well. The guy that did this research believes it's impossible to adjust for that. Now, there's also in there, they look into satellite data as an alternative method of determining global temperature. And if you look at the satellite data, that shows a very small gradual temperature increase, which is in line with expectations of 0.14 degrees Fahrenheit or Celsius per year, but not very much. And, you know, an amount that's, as I said, in line with expectations. So I think that we are expecting a somewhat linear increase right now, given the period of time we are in with fluctuations in temperature of a natural kind. We're expecting the temperature to be going up slowly right now, but then probably to come back down in like 50, 100 years or so. So it's in line with that, roughly. And that's the satellite data. And it's either NASA or some other organization that manages these temperature stations. They said that that's unreliable because it uses inference to determine its temperature, which also, of course, the electric thermometers also do. And it's much the same thing. It's like, yeah, the method is technically an inference, but it's a pretty dead certain inference based on basic physics. So just bear in mind that, you know, like I've said often that with climate change, probably most of the science is good, but the amount of politicization and propaganda and benefit to certain people for propagating the narrative, even if it isn't true, means I can't really trust it, means I want more information before I trust it. But the fact that, like, even if the scientists are doing good work, if they're being fed god-awful shit-tier data from organizations that should be trustworthy, yes, I could see that fucking the whole thing up. I could see that genuinely causing good scientific work to result in lies. If the original method for gathering the data is flawed, especially to 96%, when 96% of the data input is corrupt in the direction that would lead to the conclusion that the powerful people want. So there was even some of these temperature sensors near to like chemical runoff areas where the temperature of the air would be risen by bacteria eating the chemicals. It's that nuts. They're on like roasting roofs in the middle of cities. They're in like car parks and stuff where you've got this tarmac on the ground that absorbs and re-emits the heat. Like in cities is hotter slightly than outside cities, and most of their 96% are in places that are too hot. And the people that did this research, and again, it's their research. I haven't looked at it. I haven't looked at the methodology. Maybe they're wrong, but the people that did this research, worth looking into. The remaining 4% of these sensors line up with the satellite heat data. So you gotta think, like, that is plausible. Even if all the scientists involved are doing good work, if the data is shit and the propaganda on the other side is shit, I could see that making the picture we have today. Let's continue with the article, which, again, is about that topic. Because that is the main justification for a lot of these shitty policies. The protests coincide with a Thursday summit of EU leaders, with the farmers calling on them to scrap agricultural and environmental regulations implemented by leadership in Brussels. There's more video here, with them shooting hoses to try and clear the area. Use your vote on the wall there. That's smart. That'll probably work. Yeah, it's a protest. I don't know if the protest was violent. They were starting a fire. But honestly, at this point, you know, maybe something more than just starting a fire is necessary and appropriate for the level of oppression that we're seeing. I don't know. I ain't saying, I'm just saying. So yeah, according to reports, farmers have broken through the barricades outside of Parliament and also ignited smoke bombs. I can't really be too mad about smoke bombs, but I would recommend not using actual, like, incendiaries or like fragmentation or anything like that. But smoke bombs, I can't really be angry about. There's no sound on this clip, it looks like, but footage of the scene. Looks like a plane overhead, or no, a helicopter probably monitoring the situation. Barricades. Maybe that's the old barricade line and they're walking past it now. You can see that there's someone filming right under that sign we saw earlier, so they got pretty far in. Quote, "We want to stop these crazy laws that come every single day from the European Commission," said José Maria Castilla, a farmer in Brussels representing the Spanish Farmers Union, Asaya, or Asaya, maybe. That is a lot of, that's just one small picture. That's all that each one of those is either a farmer or a farm worker who have agreed to set aside this day and all the profits therein to drive to their nation's capital and just protest. That's a lot of public feeling against this stuff. A lot of European countries, the public feeling is really culminating. Our opponent really can't keep this up for much longer. The protests come as EU leaders met to discuss a $50 billion aid package for Ukraine. Yeah, I can see that pissing off these farmers. How every year they're being squeezed tighter and tighter. How no matter how good their yields are, they are earning less and working harder for that less every year, specifically because of government intervention. That is at least the story as far as I understand it. And then the very people implementing these oppressive policies are putting together $50 billion for a foreign country's war that has nothing to do with these people. Yeah, I can really understand how they would be this upset. I'm right there with them. Belgian Prime Minister Alexander De Croo said that the farmers' concerns would be added to the summit's agenda, oh, that'll help, saying it is important that we listen to them, adding they face gigantic challenges, the Washington Post reports. That, like, I don't know Alexander De Croo. I have no idea how trustworthy he is, but probably not at all. And I don't doubt that the EU has, like, maybe even more power in is it Belgium, than their own government does, or certainly a lot of it. So this sounds like an attempt to make them go away by the easiest possible method. Maybe he's being honest, but if he is, I don't think he realizes just how much the EU does not care. The growing unrest over Europe's punishment of farmers has also been seen in Italy, Portugal, France, Greece, and Germany, as farmers express outrage over green regulations and cheap imports. Yeah, just after I went away for a week, on about the 26th, or was it actually? No, we did it on the last stream before I went away, actually. We did see the Berlin protests, which were very similar to this as well. More footage. Farmers in the capital, rolling tanks. Not tanks, fucking tractors. Tractors, though, I don't know. Not as powerful as tanks if you had to compare them, but horns just stuck on. This is an effective protest. So it's more of this, more just like tractors driving. There's a lot of tractors just driving past. It's just one place they're driving past, just with their horns stuck on. Breaking farmers target European Parliament in Brussels. As anger sweeps through farming communities in Europe, protesters in Belgium have begun to build barricades and start fires outside the EU Parliament. And we already know the rest. So here's more footage. I did see something earlier about actual tyre fires. In fact, I think those are tyres. And they've been lighting them on fire. Yes, they are exactly tyres. They've been lighting them on fire exactly in rejection of the environmental stuff that's being pushed. And light the tyres on fire. They got to, oh shit, they didn't just, I mean, they brought their trash to burn. That's pretty funny. I like that. That was someone trying to do the classic, like, football sound, but not very well. So yeah, more footage of the same thing. Belgian farmers have joined protests across Europe. No, not Venezuela. The tune. Utterly blocking the road. Why are you crossing between them? That's madness. Oh, getting back in. Okay. I don't know what they were doing, but that's kind of weird. This is a good protest, though. Like, these need to become much more common. Again, like, they probably do in some way break some minor stupid law, but sometimes protests have to, so I'm okay with it. These need to become more common. The thing that really pisses me off about all this is that we do need to start destabilizing our institutions. They have become way too corrupt. We need to fight against our own collectives. It's sad to say, but ultimately we do. The reason that's sad is because that is exactly what the enemies subverting our nation have wanted for decades. It's exactly what the Soviet Union wanted for us. It's exactly what China want for us, and we're doing exactly that. What I think they did not anticipate is that the movements to rejuvenate our countries would be quite as capable, quite as strong, quite as ethical as they are. They wanted both sides to be evil. But while the side they are supporting are evil, the side we're supporting is actually extremely ethical. So that's the best I can take away from this. But we are fighting our institutions. We are collapsing. We are fighting ourselves. We are degenerating in exactly the way all of those subversive nations, all of the Soviets, China especially, would have wanted. Exactly playing exactly what they want. And the destabilization is happening. But if we are quick enough about it, and if we have ethical enough replacements for all these evil people, then they will not get what they want. China currently, they will not get what they want. The field says there, tractors moving under heavy weight, purposely congesting the road. You'd be quite safe to walk up and down these lanes, selling beers to the farmers. I'd be careful, because I don't know how good the visibility on those tractors are, and if you get stuck under one, you are dead. So I don't know about that. Like, even in the middle there, there's most of them have scoops. So I'd be very careful, but it looked like they were expecting them to get in, so I don't know. But yes, they are driving slowly. I understand what they're doing. Just I'd be more careful than they seemed to be in that case. But hey, it worked out, so maybe I've misunderstood something. They're also covering the hard shoulder, of course. What if one of them breaks down? Well, then they'd be covering it permanently. So, yeah, there's that happening. More in the article. That's a good photo, chat. That's a good photo. Let's see them stand up to this. 50 billion reasons to be angry, indeed, and that's the end of the article. So yeah, that's what's happening in Brussels. May it continue happening all across the rest of Europe. Now, I don't know, chat, if this is true, but I wonder if it's happening. I know it's happening in the UK. I wonder if it's happening to the same extent here, or if maybe it's not quite as bad, because I haven't seen a lot of this kind of furore here in the UK. There is also the option that our farmers are just less courageous or less organized. That is possible, but I wonder if it's just less bad, because we're not in the EU currently. Many of the same policies may still be affecting our farmers, like just carried over or not removed, but it may be that we actually have escaped some of the worst parts of this. It may be. I wonder if farmers have noticed any improvements in the last 8 years since we left the EU. Because, like, the policy, I don't think is originating from the EU. The drive to do this is not originating from the EU. It's originating from places that also have significant influence over our government and our policies. Don't get me wrong, Ronald, I know it's bad in the UK, and Clarkson's farm did apparently show it. I know it's bad. I just don't know if it's quite as bad as it is in Europe. Yeah, I would like to see Clarkson leading one of these. Entire UK is driving distance. Every tractor in the UK should descend upon London and gridlock every street. Yeah, I agree. If it is as bad as is being reported, as I'm hearing, if it's anywhere near as bad as it is in the EU, then yes, I'd be fine with Clarkson for PM. Like, he's brash and selfish and boisterous and all this stuff. Like, not qualities that you would usually assume are appropriate for a prime minister. But far from Trump being Trump demonstrating that that's bullshit being the only reason, right now, I would absolutely take just a normal person. Just a normal person off the street, especially someone charismatic with actual ideas. I'd take them in a heartbeat over any politician. Because one of the biggest problems we have in the UK right now, like, quite aside from all the corruption and all the institutions that don't work properly and all the everything, we don't have any charismatic leaders who are even willing to pretend to be on our side. Like, let alone any that actually are. Like, in the US, be very happy that you've got Trump and that you've got a few other good people around him. We've got Farage. He's not quite a Trump, and he's not quite as energetic or as dedicated as Trump. But it's also harder to break into politics here. But again, as I asked someone recently, who is the most influential UK politician in the last 20 years? They said Nigel Farage straight away. Yeah, you don't need to be in a party to be influential. And I'm sure that we can do, we can have more than just Nigel Farage. I'd like to think so. Field says, let me put it this way. If a local town or city council tried to pull the shit that Clarkson has to deal with here in California, their houses would be buried in manure. Let's hope so. There were some, that did happen, I think. I can't remember which country that was in. That might have been in the Netherlands. Well, Ronald, like, Brexit was still a good thing. Like, it wasn't going to solve problems overnight. It was something that was, it's a long-term thing. It's a principled thing. It will help in the long term. But now, as you or someone else said earlier, at least without Brexit, our politicians only have themselves to blame, rather than being able to blame someone else in Brussels. We have more control over our own law. So it's not like it was a colossal and immediate difference, but it was a very important difference that is going to show in the long term. And if the EU goes really south, we will be a lot less affected than if we were still part of it. Of course, what we've seen is that the EU will take out their aggression on us now, which means that we do suffer, and there was going to be suffering as a result. But it is still important. It is still relevant. The actual vote and the actual leaving of the institution itself is not that relevant anymore, because it was years ago. But actually, Brexit, you could also argue, is just as relevant as ever, because there are still ways in which we have not left the EU. The European Court of Human Rights, I think it's called, is still part of the reason that we get so much immigration here, so much undesirable immigration here. Anyway, that's that story.